Hi, and welcome to What the RA, a podcast about balancing your life, living happily, traveling, and gaining financial independence, all whilst having a chronic illness. On this podcast, I'm interested in helping others with chronic illnesses to feel better about their lives in spite of life's challenges. I know from personal experience that this can be very hard, especially with all the difficulties you face in dealing with chronic illnesses. So if you're a family member or a friend of somebody dealing with a chronic illness, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you stick along with us on this journey so that you can learn and also share your opinion on what it's like to care for somebody who deals with a chronic illness. So if you like what you're hearing, please do stick around because right now it's time for What the RA. Hi, and welcome to What the RA. This is my very first episode, so I'm really excited about this one. I have been contemplating doing this for a really long time, so I've been really nervous to start this podcast, but I feel like it's really important for the chronic illnesses I have and my mindset with that, as well as, everyone else that has chronic illnesses, that this could help. There are so many great podcasts out there already, but it couldn't hurt to have one more. And especially for people within my age group, I'm a millennial and this has been really hard on me. So I'm sure that I'm not alone and neither are you. So thank you so much for joining me. The first thing I'm going to discuss is ways in which you can support somebody who has a chronic illness, whether they just got diagnosed or have had it for a while. This condition is invisible sometimes, so it can be hard to tell if somebody is having a hard time or not, because people with chronic illnesses tend to hide how they feel so that you don't feel uncomfortable. And for me, that has been the case a lot of the time, all of my life almost. So let's first learn what chronic illnesses are. I have opened up the CDC's website where they speak about chronic illnesses, and on this page they say that chronic diseases are defined broadly as conditions that last 1 year or more and require ongoing medical attention or limit activities of daily living or both. That's just a shortened version of what it is. So do some research. There's a lot that you can get from doing your research that I can't exactly share with you in this short podcast. So, with that said, if you're wondering about my chronic illnesses, which is the whole reason I started this podcast, I have what's called endometriosis, rheumatoid arthritis, and I have some side effects that go along with that. But the point is, I've got chronic illnesses and I'm here because I want to change my mindset, change the way I feel, improve my lifestyle, and help you do the same. Because quite honestly, not having a good quality of life is not great for anybody. And especially when you are suffering chronically, it can really take a toll on your mental and as well as your physical health, because oftentimes whatever you feel translates into some sort of physical setback. So that could look like an injury or a flare of some sort. And a flare, for anyone who doesn't know, it's just when your symptoms just increase rapidly out of nowhere or seemingly out of nowhere. It usually comes from either things you've eaten or stress, a combination of everything, anxiety, and I did that in air quotes because you often hear this term flown around when it comes to understanding what is happening in terms of your chronic illness. So back to how you can be supported. So here I've got a list of scenarios, I guess, and I will just go through them one by one and just discuss them. And this isn't medical advice, it's just my opinion And anything on this episode is just my opinion, but I'm sharing it because I know other people feel this way too. And I would love to learn about techniques and ways in which any listeners or people you know of, I would love to learn about ways in which they or you deal with these issues and deal with living life with a chronic illness, because it is a roller coaster. Okay, so ways in which someone with a chronic illness can be supported when they're ill. For me, this looks like just checking in. How are you? Can I do anything for you? Do you need anything? How can I help you? Those sorts of questions are really helpful because it shows them somebody cares about them and they are thought of and that you love them. Because oftentimes when I've traveled a lot and I'm abroad and I'm by myself, or I don't have a big support system, not having that can make you feel alone and put you in this negative bubble, instead of someone telling you you should do this, you should do that, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. You could just ask the person, what do you need? How can I help you? How can I show up for you? I have a friend that's really great at this, and I just think it's awesome when you have that kind of support in your life from people who don't just tell you how to feel when you're not okay, but actually want to listen and see how they can help you. So that's something good you can do. And in terms of giving medical advice, this is something that can get out of hand sometimes with people. Medical advice is a little bit tricky because sometimes for me, it feels like you're making the assumption that I haven't done my own research, that I haven't seen a trillion doctors, that I haven't heard it all, seen it all, researched it all, heard about the vegan solutions or the plant-based, however you want to look at it, or eating clean, what that can do for you. And yes, there's a lot of truth in that, at least for myself personally, the things that I've had to deal with in terms of finding ways to improve my health, my overall health, but we'll get to that a bit later on. Right now, I just wanted to acknowledge that when somebody shows you that they are there to listen when you don't feel okay, that is extremely helpful. So definitely take note of that one. Okay, and then the other point is when we're out, how can you show up for us when we're out and we're not okay, or we just look uncomfortable, we just seem off? Sometimes you can tell. If you're a close friend, you can tell when your friend isn't doing okay. People who are chronically ill tend to not want to make a big fuss, don't want attention on them when they're not doing okay, don't want attention on them when they unsure about what might happen next. So oftentimes you might see that the person withdraws, gets quiet, stops talking, isn't as social, and maybe they will say they're tired, or they have errands to run, or they need to, they need to visit somebody, or they're late for something. All these are excuses to leave because we're afraid that something might happen with us. We might feel faint, we might throw up, we might, have really bad pains, or we're unable to talk about what we're feeling because when we're feeling it, we don't necessarily feel like talking about it. We're just experiencing it and trying our best for it to go away. But with that said, a lot of the time, things that can help are distractions, but, not necessarily in public settings. But it depends on the person. You could have a friend who loves being around people so that they can get distracted that way. But if you've got more severe symptoms, you may not want that. So you may just want a friend who you can just say, hey, I'm going to go. And they just understand why you're leaving. You don't have to say much, or they're not convincing you to stay out because they don't want you to miss out on experiences. But they understand why you can't stay out. They understand what's going on with you. Okay, another struggle with people who have chronic illnesses are those who don't really have social lives. So something important to understand if you become friends with, are related to, or have a partner who deals with chronic illnesses, it's not that they don't want to go out, it's that sometimes they just can't. And sometimes they really, really do want to go out, but they feel like such a pain and such a burden because of how they experience the world now. I know that when I was out a lot, especially when I was abroad, for those of you who don't know, meaning everyone else except friends and family, I lived abroad for a long time, and during that time I got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and that turned out to just turn my world upside down. Before that, I had been dealing with endometriosis, and that in itself was another crazy situation. So it can be hard to socialize because you're doing it while you're in pain. And nobody likes to do things when they're in pain. But nobody likes to sit at home all alone either. So my point is that sometimes it's a little tricky to explain this to your friends. And I mean that as in the person with a chronic illness has to explain to the person who doesn't have one that they want to go out. But, you're just afraid that you're going to feel like a burden. And a lot of the times you don't get invited out because people are uncomfortable around you. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to accommodate you. They don't know how to feel about your condition. And they might be too scared to talk to you about it because they might think it's a touchy subject. And maybe that day it is a touchy subject. So it's a little tricky, but I feel like ways in which you could help or support the person you care about is by communicating. Before you guys plan things, just say, hey, are you okay with going to the river, having a picnic, or, what would you like to do this weekend? I haven't seen you in a while. Like, I would love to do something. What are you comfortable with? Or even just really getting to know your person. Like, what are your interests? What do you like? What do you wish you could do right now? Is there anything you've been wanting to do for a while? Or if you already have plans, you could then include your friend by just, adjusting some things. If that's possible. If it's not possible, then maybe don't do that, but maybe be sure to go out with them before you go out with your friends. Just have as they say, pre-drinks or a pre-meeting or a coffee or a lunch before you go out and do your thing if it's late. Or you can just plan something that your friend can do. So yeah, like I mentioned before, it's not all about, just stopping activities or not doing certain things. It's just about figuring out ways in which you can manage your time better to include the people you care about, and also just to be aware that the person dealing with a chronic illness still cares about you and still wants to be included in your life, but it may be difficult for them to speak out and say something because they know what it must be like for you. A lot of people dealing with chronic illnesses often think a lot about the other person, the person observing you being sick, the person who you have to deal with on a regular basis. And so you have to wear the suit, this I'm okay suit, and that may really take a toll on you. So just checking in, the how are yous, what can I do for you? Is there anything I can help you with? Helps a lot, goes a long way. And also offer that if you know that you can do the thing, or if you really want to do the thing, because offering help when you don't want to can also be a lot on the person, because again, you're feeling that you're a burden and that you're so needy, you need a lot from people, and you start to feel very sorry for yourself. So it's a bit difficult. It's a bit tricky to navigate life in that mindset, which is part of why I thought I would start off with this topic so we can sort of get it out the way and just figure out how to be there for the people we care about. And of course, this advice isn't solely for people dealing with chronic illnesses. It can be people having a hard time in general, but this is especially for those of us who deal with chronic illnesses. Okay, so the next one I'm going to speak about is feeling overwhelmed with news about your illness. So when you go to the doctor, when you first get diagnosed, or when you feel a flare coming on, and you just have all these symptoms and all these issues, and it keeps piling on, and you just sitting there and just feeling helpless and hopeless, and like everything is never gonna, nothing's gonna let up. Everything is just gonna be bad constantly, and in your head you're thinking, man, I don't know if I can do this. And it goes dark. Sometimes you think, man, I don't know if I could live like this. So those times are the times where you need your friends the most. And what is so wild and crazy and sad is that in a lot of those times, in a lot of those situations, people just have their own things going on in life, and it's hard to reach out. It's hard to say anything when you see other people suffering too. Other people have losses, other people going through breakups, other people might have their own chronic illnesses or their own mental issues or emotional issues, or whatever issues they may have may make it very difficult for you to ask for help, especially if those are the only people that you have around you. So it can be a lonely experience. So if you do have a second just to check in with someone that you know is struggling, that you know needs help, just reaching out every once in a while can literally go so far. It just means so much, because that means you truly aren't alone. You really feel that when people are checking in on you. And yes, you as a chronic person or chronically ill person can do the same thing. You can also reach out to people in general, and sometimes it helps to help other people too, to share your love and support for other people, even though it's got nothing to do with chronic illness. Like, it may just distract you from that. Like, sometimes those distractions make you feel better about your life. Yes, it sounds selfish, and it is, but it's also a good selfish. It's something that you do because you genuinely want what's best for the other person, but that can also help you to be better. So all in all, when you are just overwhelmed with health news and stuff, just checking in on somebody is a good way forward. Just checking in and seeing what you can do and how you can help. And please just try and avoid, let's say, criticisms of what the person should have done, could have done, should be doing instead of what they're doing, because that isn't healthy. And a lot of the times the person may feel the need to just push away protect themselves in that moment, because a lot of the time it's negative self-talk. But when you do that, that is probably one of the few times that someone going through a really hard time would defend themselves and their actions, is when you are telling them what they should do and label it as constructive criticism, or that you just care about them, or you just want what's best for them, labeling it that way when they're dealing with something hard. Unless you know this person really well and that's the kind of feedback, that's the kind of care and help that they desire from you. Unless it's that, like, you really are doing a disservice to the person by responding that way. There are ways to help similarly to how you wanted to help them without you being critical of their choices. Again, in listening, in asking questions, in finding out what works for them. Those are the kinds of things that you can do to help. And learning, just educating yourself about what life is actually like with this chronic illness and how you can better support them once you've learned all this research. And also before just bombarding the person with, hey, I did this and this and this. Hey, have you tried this and this and this? Just tell them that you've done the research and you understand better what they're going through. And is there anything that they need in terms of X, Y, and Z? For example, they are always chronically fatigued. You could say, hey, I did so much research. I read this, this, and this. Have you tried that before? Is there anything with regards to this list I can get you? Or, hey, would you like to go out for a walk? Would you like to come with me to this place? Or would you want me to just sit there with you? Things like that. Those are great ways in which you can support someone. Just making time for the people you care about. That really helps to show them that you support them. And in terms of the news again, of feeling overwhelmed, like when receiving this long list of problems that you have to deal with, what can really help is that research, and also just maybe being there with them in the moment that they're getting the hard news, or in the moment when things are difficult, just even if they say they want to do things alone, just be by their side until that moment where they have to speak to the consultant if they're really uncomfortable. But hopefully you can get to a point in your person's life where you can be there with them in those meetings or in those sessions where they are learning this bad news, or maybe you're researching with them, or just sitting with them as they're researching, because that can help too. Okay, and then my final few notes here are more around listening and advice and venting. But we've covered a lot of the listening and advice portion. Mainly, I want to discuss venting. Venting is such an important part of life for somebody dealing with a chronic illness, because sometimes you just hold everything inside and you just need to let it out. And letting it out gives you an opportunity to release a lot of anxiety, release a lot of stress, release a lot of pain and guilt, and just overall just uncomfortability that you have within yourself over your situation and the things you're dealing with. You just really need to be able to talk to someone that you trust. And that's why relationships are so important, and why anyone listening, or anyone who is dealing with a chronic illness, it's so important for you to have someone that you can talk to, that you can trust and rely on and depend on. Judgment-free experiences only, of course. So it's so important, because you really can't hold anything in. Like, you can't. But you also shouldn't be forced to just express yourself so the other person feels comfortable. You should express yourself for your own health. Learn what's good for your body, what's good for your mind, your heart, your spirit, and what the things are that you can do to be better for yourself. For yourself first and foremost. And if you're good for yourself, you'll be good for other people too. But you are your own priority. And there's times where, just dealing with people pleasing can be extremely detrimental to your own recovery. And this happens a lot with, trying to act like nothing is wrong when everything is wrong or feels wrong. You need to just deal with that and just also ensure that, you vent, you talk it out, you have those feelings with the people you can trust and the people who know how to be there for you. It is a skill, it takes time, but those people are so cherished and so important. And you also need to do this for yourself and them so that you don't overwhelm them. If you are constantly sad and constantly down and constantly in this negative mindset, it not only affects you because you see how it affects them, so it affects you because it affects them even more. And then on top of that, you're dealing with your actual symptoms, and then just the acknowledgement again of like someone being there for you, but always being the recipient of your news, and or it always being the same news when you don't try other things that are different, or maybe you have and it's just not working. And in those cases where it's just not working, you have tried, at least you vented and you've had that experience, and now you can pick yourself up and do everything that you can to be okay. Just everything that you can to be okay, and then just know that that feeling is temporary and the feeling can change. Even if you are still dealing with chronic pain, even if you're still dealing with just the negative mindset of what you were going through, that feeling can be temporary and it can improve. Even if it's baby steps, it can improve. And so that in itself is something to look forward to. When pain becomes comfortable and you're just so set in nothing can fix this, I don't like this, those are the times that you really want to lean into one, just expressing yourself, crying it out, just expressing anything you need to express in a safe way and with people that you trust, of course, and then doing things to bring yourself out of that experience, doing things that you enjoy, walking, cooking, running, if you can, of course. Just anything that makes you happy. I just listed things that I enjoy. The running, not so much, not since I've become an RA patient, but just things that you enjoy. You should do that as much as you can and keep yourself maybe distracted in that way and find community. That's another reason why I started this podcast, because community is so important, so important. And it's not always easy. I don't have a big community of people that I can talk to about things. I don't really belong to any chronically ill communities. This is something I'm changing. Like, this is my first podcast, so I do plan on changing that. I would also like to start my own. I want the community to be for people who just want to talk about ways in which they can do better for themselves when they're down. Let's share advice, let's share tips on how to break from this negative feeling. And yes, it's okay to have those negative emotions. It's okay to do those things, to express yourself and to think those things. But it's not okay to stay there. And that's so important. Don't stay there, because it's only harming you, it's only hurting you, and it's not good for you in the long run. It's not good for you to think that nothing is ever going to be better. It's just unhealthy. And we don't want unhealthy for you. We want good vibes. We want you to have a fulfilling life, a balanced life, a fruitful life. And we want to be there for you through each step of the way. Yes, you're going to have downtimes. We're going to acknowledge that. We're going to acknowledge you. We're going to validate your feelings. But also, we are going to help get you out of that situation, because nobody should be there. Nobody. You deserve better. We all do. We all deserve better for ourselves than to be placed in these dark emotions. I'm hammering this home because that is such an important fact for you and for myself to remember and understand. Okay, so another thing that I forgot to add is that when you are speaking to a consultant or you are supporting the person who's chronically ill at a medical appointment or anything like that, please help them to ask questions, because everything can be very overwhelming in the moment. You're just hearing things, and a lot of the time all you hear is you're gonna die, you're gonna die, you're gonna die. So it can be really difficult to listen to the news when you get it, especially if you're first getting diagnosed. You feel like it's the end of the world. So please, 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 as the person who is supporting the other one, please help them ask questions. Sometimes they may just be so overwhelmed with the information, everything's going in and out, and only the very worst things are sticking. So ask questions about medication, ask things about nutrition. And I know a lot of the doctors will probably not be able to give you any advice about nutrition. That is why it is so important to speak to a nutritionist, to speak to anyone who is very good with holistic healing, naturopath, holistic doctor, nutritionist, people like that. Because they often have solutions and remedies to things that can help us out more than modern medicine. Now, with that said, that's a whole nother can of worms. Yes, you probably have to be on some sort of modern medicine for your chronic illness, and there's just no way of getting around it for right now, or at least once you've gotten your diagnosis. You need to start on something. But in addition to that, you can then start changing your diet and de-stressing, staying away from people who are just negative, who bring you down, who aren't good listeners, who just have an overall dark presence, because that's not healthy for you. So if you are someone supporting somebody who is going through a chronic illness, but you tend to find that people may say you're often too sarcastic or you're just always criticizing and things like that, that kind of behavior isn't really healthy for somebody who is dealing with a chronic illness, and they may just need to spend less time with you. But if you can become somebody who could be supportive and a light and just a breath of fresh air for someone dealing with a chronic illness, that would be really, really good, really amazing. And that could be the world to somebody who's dealing with something. Because, like I said before, everyone is dealing with their issues. So everyone is going to feel some sort of heaviness. Well, not everyone. I feel like a large percentage of people may have some heaviness that comes with them. And you bring in that to someone who's really dealing with their own stuff, that's just two negative energies. I don't know how that's going to work out. So I think it's best that everyone just tries to be the best versions of themselves and the best versions for the people they care about. And that really helps. That helps both parties. I do want to point out that the person who is dealing with the condition needs to also be mindful, and I'm sure you are already very mindful of just how much negative energy you are allowing into your life. And when I say allowing, I mean through people, I mean through music, things you listen to, things you hear, politics, any type of negative things that are present in your life. You just need to figure out what that is and just try to start, letting go of those things, because they aren't serving you. They really are not serving you at all. So do that. Be good to yourself. Be good. I know positive affirmations don't work for everyone. Journaling can help. Speaking to other people who are dealing with the same thing can help. And just opening up, like we said in the beginning of the episode, opening up about things that are hard for you can help. It would be great if you didn't have just one person, maybe it was two people, and you went to them for different subjects, or, so that you didn't always feel this burden that you were putting on someone. And not that you should ever consider yourself to be a burden, because the people who are helping you are the people who care about you and they want you to do better. And I hope that the people who are offering you that help really are coming from that place. Because please do not offer help to someone if you feel like they are starting to burden you. If you feel like you cannot handle it, if you feel like they are too much, because you need to be willing to show up for those people. And if it's hard, you can say, hey, I can show up for you in this way today. This is how I can be there for you. I want to be there for you. I'm just dealing with something, but this is how I can show up for you. Instead of you just showing up as you always do and starting to resent the person for opening up to you and just being that way with you when you told them it was okay. So both parties need to be responsible here. The person dealing with the illness needs to just take into account that what they're dealing with is normal, but you don't have to stay there. And you should try your very best not to stay in that dark place. But when you have the feelings that you have, you're validated in that, it's not cool what you're going through, you need to vent, go ahead and vent. You need to cry, go ahead and cry. You need to do what you need to do. In a healthy way, of course, then go ahead and do that. And the person supporting you, just show up as you can. Show up with a listening ear if you can. And I would suggest that you first ask the person dealing with the thing how you can show up with them. And you can give them options. Giving them options is a really good idea because you can start to read things out. Like you can say, hey, do you need me to run to the store for you? Do you need me to grab something for you? Do you need me to do this and that? Because sometimes when you're feeling down, you don't really have the words to express what you need. And sometimes you can't even think of the things you need. So it's good to have options and it's good to talk about these things before they actually happen. So yeah, it's good to have those conversations with the people you care about, the loved ones you have in your life, the ones who are there to support you and who want to support you. That's very important. And then just get rid of all the negative energy that you can from your life and focus on positive things that you can do. And yes, unfortunately, for some of us who hate to admit it, it does involve dietary needs, holistic healing needs, energy changing, switching up your energy, people who are around you, as we mentioned before, and finally, just doing things that you enjoy doing and just keeping busy and not depending on people to be the support that you need, but to start being the support that you need for yourself, if that makes any sense. So, that was the first episode. I hope that you liked it. I hope that it was of some value to you. It actually helped me. I was venting a little bit to you about some things, but I was also trying to be very educational and intentional about the words that I use. So, thank you for listening to this episode. I look forward to the next one, and I hope it won't be too long until I record that one because I want to do this regularly and I want to build a community, and I hope to hear from you. Positive comments only, please. This is supposed to be a safe, supportive, and trusted space. So thank you so much for joining. If you have any comments at all with regards to how you can show up for somebody you care about that's going through a hard time, or how you have shown up for somebody who's been dealing with a chronic illness or going through a hard time, please let us know in the comment section. And please join the social media pages that are linked in the show notes and the comments. Thank you so much for listening to the episode. This was a very special one for me because this was my first one. I look forward to hearing from you in the comment section of the social media pages that are linked in the show notes and the YouTube page. But thank you once again. I hope to see you next time. And this was What the RA.